Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, great student. Welcome to Science class. So today we will learn about electrolysis. Have you studied the topic before? If not, let us study it together. First, I will show a video about the topic.
Electrolysis is electrical current flow through a liquid which causes chemical changes. Yes, you did hear that correctly. Current flowing through a liquid. Now, not all liquids can conduct. The liquid can be a molten ionic compound or an aqueous solution. In either case, it must be able to carry current. Let's take a common example, table salt. If you heat sodium chloride to over 801 degrees Celsius, it will melt. The liquid will contain free-flowing positive sodium ions and negative chloride ions. This simply means that sodium and chloride ions are free to move within the liquid sodium chloride. Positive ions are called cations. Negative ions are called anions. Now consider putting two electrical conductors into the liquid. Copper would be good as it has a higher melting point. Nothing happens to the ions at this point, but if we connect the two bits of copper to an electrical cell or power supply, then things start to get interesting. We do need to sidestep for a moment to look at electrical current in a metal. From our lesson Behavior of Metallic Structures, we know that electrons in a metal aren't bound to particular atoms. They form a sea of electrons that can move easily if a potential difference or a voltage is applied across it. This could be from an electrical cell or a battery. The electrons will begin to drift towards the positive terminal of the battery, and this is what happens when current flows. Current is the movement of charge, in this case, electrons. Now, let's go back to our molten sodium chloride. We've added our copper wires, let's call them electrodes, and now we'll connect these to an electrical cell. The electrons will start to flow in the wires, and this will cause one electrode to become positively charged and the other negatively charged. This has an immediate knock-on effect in the molten sodium chloride, which you'll remember is a mixture of sodium cations and chloride anions. Anything positively charged in the liquid, in this case the sodium ions, is going to be attracted to the negative electrode. And anything negatively charged, in this case the chloride ions, is going to be attracted to the positive electrode. This is because opposite electrical charges attract. When the ions meet the electrodes, electron exchange happens, and this triggers a chemical reaction. Solids can form, gases can be given off, and new solutions can be left behind. It all depends on the liquid and what material the electrodes are made from. There is more detail about this process in our lesson Interpreting Electrode Equations. There are special names for the electrodes, which are usually metal plates with a larger surface area than a piece of wire. The positive electrode is called the anode, it attracts anions, and the negative electrode is called the cathode, it attracts cations. The liquid is effectively conducting electrical current. The only difference is that the charge carriers in the liquid, in other words, the charged particles that are moving, are ions. If a liquid has free moving ions and can conduct like this, it is called an electrolyte. Remember that electrolysis can also take place in ionic solutions as well as molten compounds. The more concentrated that solution, the greater the ion flow rate. Ion flow rate can also be increased by increasing the potential difference or voltage across the cell. We'll be studying several examples of electrolysis in more detail in other lessons. For the time being though, here is a summary of the key ideas about electrolysis. Electrolysis is the flow of electrical current in a conducting solution or molten liquid that causes chemical changes. The conducting liquid is called an electrolyte and has free moving ions. The conducting plates, bars, or wires inserted into an electrolyte are called electrodes. Positive ions are called cations and are attracted to the cathode. Negative ions are called anions and are attracted to the anode. When current flows in an electrolyte, it is the ions that move and carry the electrical charge. When current flows in the electrodes and wires, it is the electrons that move and carry the electrical charge.
Okay, based on the video, what does the term electrolysis mean? So, electrolysis can divide into two words, namely is electro and lysis. Electro is electricity, lysis is fraction or breakdown. And we can conclude that electrolysis is a system with an electrochemical process where a direct electricity current, or DC, is passed from one electrode to another in an ionic solution which breaks down into a simpler substance when the electric current passes through it. So this is picture about electrolysis process. From the picture, there is a liquid and we can call electrolyte. And we have added our copper wire and we can call electrode. And now we connect this to an electrical cell. The electron will start to flow in the wire and this still causes one electrode to become positively charged and negatively charged. The positive electrode is called anode. It attracts ions. And the negative electrode is called cathode. It attracts cations. Okay, based on the definition and the process, there are three main characteristics of an electrolysis process. The first is the presence of free ions in an electrolyte solution. Second, there is an external source of DC current, for example a battery. And the last has two electrodes, namely cathode and anode. How identify cathode and anode? So, in this picture above, you can see a series of molten natrium chloride or NaCl. Electrolysis. The electrolysis process begins with a direct electric current flowing from the power source. The electron from the negative pole will flow toward the cathode, and as a result, positive Na plus ions. In the natrium chloride melt will be attracted to the cathode and absorb electrons to reduce them the neutral Na. Meanwhile, negative Cl ions in the melt will be attracted to the anode and at the positive pole. The Cl ions will be oxidized to neutral Cl2 by removing electrons. The electrons are then flowed anode and forward to the positive pole of the main voltage. So, the redox reaction that occurs in molten natrium chloride electrolysis cell can be written by follows. The cathode is reduction anode is oxidation. So redox reaction cell is redox. You can see the chemical reaction. So based the explanation, we can conclude that the cathode is the negative electrode. This is where the positively charged ions get electrons in the reduction reaction. Anode is a positive electrode. This is where the negatively charged ions lose electrons in an oxidation reaction. And to find out the electrode material, we can see the reduction potential. If the reduction potential is smaller, it means that it is oxidated and vice versa. The following are used of electrolysis in chemistry. The first is decomposition or breakdown of water into hydrogen and oxygen by means of an electric current. The same process can be used to decompose compounds other than water. For example, used as a method for making oxygen, hydrogen, or chlorine gas in laboratories. Second is, it is used in the refining process of dirty metal, where the dirty metal is at the anode while the pure metal is placed at the cathode. And the last is electroplating. It is the process involving electrolysis to plate or coat one metal with another or a plastic with a metal. Often the purpose of electroplating is to give a protective coating to the metal beneath. Next, factor influencing electrolysis. The first is electric current. The second is electrodes. What is electrode? Electrode is solid conductive material that conduct electricity. The positive and negative electrode are used in electrolysis to conduct electricity. And the last is electrolyte and their concentration. What is electrolyte? Electrolyte is a solution containing ions free of liquid ionic substance or molten. The ions are free to move to carry the charge. That's all from me. I hope you can understand what I explained to you. I'm sorry to if I make a mistake. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.